So this is going to be a video comparing basically Scarlet and Violet with going between the Switch 1 and the Switch 2. So for starters, we are on the Switch 1 right now, and big thing you'll notice when I switch over to the Switch 2 will be that this tree here becomes substantially better in terms of visual fidelity. There will also be more Pokemon spawning, which currently we're on Scarlet. When I switch over to the Switch 2, we will be on Violet. So what I'm going to do is I'm kind of just going to fly down into the center here. And then we'll try to match the path out as to the best of our ability on the Switch 1, or the Switch 2, to what we're doing right now. And I am currently streaming a capture card into my computer and then recording with OBS. But I am capturing the 4K capture utility that comes with the Elgato HD 60, I think S+. So, if you want to know what I'm recording on, that's what I'm recording on if you want to replicate it. So, I don't know. I don't know if we're going to land on this rock on Switch 2, but I'd say this is a good stopping point, and then we'll switch back to the Switch 1, and then we can go down even further, and then at some point we'll go to the Bamboo Forest. And then I can go check out a couple things in the DLC areas, and it does take a moment to flip between the two, because I'm using... It just takes a moment when I do the HDMI switch for that, but... Yeah, I guess, let you see this tree for a moment. This isn't, I guess, quite matching what we did, but I want to showcase that, like, the tree leaves look a lot better. Although, of course, if I think they did a higher visual fidelity, it would look even better on the Switch 2, but... Already the Switch 2 is showing that it's quite a bit clearer. And then, once we get down to the cave, it'll probably look pretty nice down there, too. But, yeah, I will also say on the Switch 2, I am doing the 4K resolution, so if you are running 1440p or 1080p through the Switch 2, it might look a little worse. And I think we want to land on this rock, but as you can see, things look quite a bit sharper as we go down into here. There's also, the other thing you'll notice is there's a lot more Pokemon spawning, which should help quite a bit for shiny hunting. That's something you're into. And then there's also, like, when you zoom in, it's higher detail. And then from this rock, we shall go even deeper into Area 0, and then we'll switch back over to the Switch 1. We'll just kind of move around a little bit in here, and then we'll switch over to the Switch 1. As you can see, we got Pokemon down here. So, this is honestly not necessarily as good of a place as I thought it was going to be, because it's just kind of a flat ground down here, but when we move to some of the other areas where there's grass at the ground, it'll look a lot better. And this is just kind of Area 0. Hopefully, when we switch back to the Switch 1 here, we can make it back to the similar spot. And so now we are back on the Switch 1, which you can already tell it's quite a bit blurrier. I think we made it out over here. If not, this is me being bad at pathing, but it'll kind of got a similar effect anyways, just because, I mean, you'll see that there's less Pokemon spawning and things look more fuzzy to begin with anyways. And when we go back to the Switch 2, things will look smoother, and the frame rate will be smoother than what we're getting on the Switch 1. But slowly getting the way out. We just ran into a Pokemon because I'm trying to showcase the background and not so much the stuff I'm focusing on. Oh no, we couldn't run away. And we'll just keep trying to avoid Pokemon, like try to get to the end, and then we'll switch back to, well, I guess we won't switch back quite yet. So that's what this looks like. Yeah, and then I think we'll switch back. Well, hopefully we landed in about the same spot. Yeah, I think this is pretty decently close. I'm not entirely sure if we're in the same spot, but kind of the difference. And then next we'll go check out everybody's favorite leggy forest. We'll go to the Fury Falls. And then while that loads on the Switch 2, which should be pretty quick, I want to get us to go over there on the Switch 1 because I'll have to wait for them both to get there and we can kind of have them go simultaneously. And then we'll have to switch back to the Switch 2 first, and then we'll go back to the Switch 1 in this area. As you can see, it's raining, and we're already running pretty smoothly. I do have the Cubfu randomly here. Mostly because I just haven't claimed Cubfu, because I haven't had a reason to, because I already have Urshifu from Sword and Shield, and I don't need an extra one, but I might grab Cubfu at some point, just because, who knows, if I want to set up an Urshifu slightly differently, I don't have to reset my current one, I can just set up a second one that's set up a little different. But as you can see, compared to the Switch, this is running pretty smooth. Sadly, the rain stopped because it would be like a better. And when you look at the trees, they should look a lot sharper on the Switch too. Also, like the grass, or more so just shrubs here. And we'll go to a grassy spot next. And we'll see that, and then maybe we'll go also to the snow biome. I'm not really sure if there's anything in the snow biome, but not going to be a bad thing to check out. So now we'll go to the Switch 1. Just give it a second to load, and made it to the Switch 1. We have a random Oranga respond. I also have Cubfu here if you want to look at Cubfu. But yeah, overall everything looks sharper on the Switch 2, just because it is a higher resolution. And just to give this a fair comparison, we'll get closer. Just here, where you can see everything is more pixely and less sharp on the Switch 1 compared to the Switch 2. This area also struggles quite a bit with performance, so it does kind of feel a little laggy as we just kind of go through here. And then the next area we'll go to, since I kind of want to make sure we're not skipping anything over here, and we'll just go to city, and then yeah, we'll just kind of let it load on the Switch 1, and then we'll look around at things, and then we'll load up the Switch 2. Yeah, this is the snow biome in case there's anything special you want to look for over here. And this is on the Switch 1 still. Be kind of obvious when we switch to the Switch 2 because we'll be on Miraidon instead of Koraidon, so go down a little bit further, go down to that bridge probably, and then switch over to the Switch 1, or is the Switch 2, not the one we're currently on, the Switch. That's kind of what things look like on here, and then we'll go over to the Switch 2 and fly over here. As you can see, we also load quite a bit faster than the Switch 1, so you will be saving some load time. And I would imagine if you have this digitally, there's a chance it might even load faster than that cartridge, because you will be on the faster internal storage, but I'm not going to buy the game digitally again to test that. As you can see, we're kind of going over there. We're on the bridge now, and let's go over here. As you can see, also, like, a lot sharper here. I think Miraidon's clearer. And then from here, I want to go some fly point on here, like grass. I think, yeah, around, this was kind of my first spot for testing my Switch 2 out was over here, just because I had a interesting outbreak that I wanted to shiny hunt, and it was like just I was kind of amazed at the grass, because the grass, I think, looks a lot worse on the Switch 1 compared to the Switch 2. And now we gotta get the Switch 1 over there, so it can be relatively quick. And sadly, I don't have a fly point, so guess we'll be picking that up while working this out. Like, it kind of is obvious that I'd spend more time in Violet than Scarlet. Mostly I have both because they do version exclusives, and then it lets me get doubles of certain things without having to reset my current game I'm in. Although I could just make another user on the Switch and do it, but I like having the, or at least being able to get any Pokemon I want to get without having to go through trading. So, getting over there pretty quickly here. And yeah, probably the reason I don't have the fly point is I still have the Pokemon set up over here, but you can see this is what the Switch 1 looks like. Which, yeah, as you can see, when you zoom in, things look a lot blurrier. And then also, and now that I'm here, it's not as big of a difference, but it still feels kind of big to me with the grass. And just like the trees and everything on the distance is a lot sharper on the Switch too. And we'll hop on Miradon right away. I mean, Miradon also looks a lot sharper here, but I can't demonstrate that off as easily just because I have Miradon on Violet and I don't have Miradon on Scarlet. We can zoom in on one of these and then switch over to the other game and then try to zoom in on one of those. Well, button again. I think a more fair comparison is probably the one over there. We need to get out of here so we don't have sandstorm going on all over the place. But definitely when you're zooming in like Pokemon in the distance, it's a lot better on the Switch 2, especially when you're fastly resetting outbreaks and looking for shinies, and sometimes it's easier to zoom in when you're looking for a shiny. And we finally made it out of the battle. Yeah, as you can see, when they get really far off in the distance, they get really fuzzy. They aren't as bad when they're not that far away, but they still, it gets pretty fuzzy when you're up close. And we'll go back to the Switch 2 here, and we'll demonstrate that. It does take a second for the load. But, like, as you can see, our Corio's not that fuzzy over there. This is pretty close, and then you can look in the distance, and they're pretty clear compared to the Switch 1, where would have been very fuzzy out in the distance. Even the grass gets really fuzzy out in the distance, so that resolution bump makes a huge difference on how visible things are in the distance. Not to mention you also have your spawn increases, so there's just more Pokemon on the screen on the Switch 2 compared to the Switch 1. And then, lastly, so we don't completely skip out of this area, we will fly. I don't know, might as well just go to the Savannah biome over here. Just so you have an Indigo Disc example. And so this is the Indigo Disc on the Switch 2 in the Savannah biome. Just kind of the hub over here in the Savannah biome. I'll pull the map up just so I can make sure I know where I'm going on the Switch 1. We got into another battle. Go. Another situation where I think I don't have the same fly point. So, we'll just go over to here and then we'll fly around. But yeah, it's pretty obvious at this point that I play on Violet a lot more than I do on Scarlet. I mean, I don't completely not play Scarlet, but Violet is definitely the priority. And so, what we will do, though, is... Yeah, we'll try to head over to our marker on the map and hopefully find the same spot. If not, kind of give you... Either way, this will give you kind of a representation of what it's like on the Switch 1, and then when we do a little bit more movement on the Switch 2, you'll see that things are. But again, I don't think I've done any flying on the Switch 2, so I'll show that off next too. We'll do a little bit of flying on the Switch 2. Over the Savannah biome, maybe we'll try to go from the Savannah biome to one of the other biomes. As you can see, the Switch 1 is less sharp, doesn't perform as well, and I mean, this could kind of be expected because I would basically say that Scarlet and Violet definitely could have been optimized more probably for the Switch 1, as the Switch 1 definitely seems to struggle for some of these things. And now we'll go back to the Switch 2. And we'll do some flying around in the Switch 2, and then I will end this comparison video here. So I think flying around, go over to the tropical biome probably. As you can see, just like as we're flying over things, like the grass is a lot less pixely on the Switch 2 compared to the Switch 1. There's just substantially higher fidelity. And we can get lower here, just show it for an even more extreme case, just because it'll be closer to the ground. A lot clearer on the Switch 2. We did just switch biomes. We'll kind of just do a tour around the islands here. We'll try to head to the ice biome, then we'll head to the canyon biome. I think at that point I will end the video, unless we run into a wild shiny, and then it might slow things down, but who knows? I might also just miss that as I'm not paying too much attention to it, but it could happen. Kind of heading over to the ice biome. And now that we've made it into the ice biome, you can start to see what this is like, and then we'll make it over to the mountain biome slowly. And yeah, just be aware, if you guys are interested in watching Pokemon live streams, I am down to do that as well. I'll be mostly shiny hunting stuff, and maybe some competitive, because those are stuff I'm interested in doing. And continue to turn over here and make it into the mountain biome shortly. Go look at Scyther up close. See, this is what Scyther looks like on the Switch 2. And then going, and then once we make it back into the Savannah biome, which I'm going to head into the mountain biome a little bit, so we don't just immediately cut in and, you know, get to see quite everything. But, I mean, either way, you're not going to see everything, but you'll have more of an idea of Switch 2 versus Switch 1 off of this. And if you currently have a Switch 1, you can just go through this as well on either game, so it'll be mostly you can copy what I'm doing here and see what it looks like on the Switch 1. I'm not going to do this whole circle on the Switch 2, or Switch 1 that I'm doing on Switch 2 right now. So, just be most of the way through it here. And now we're back into the Savannah biome. So I'm going to end the video here. Hopefully this has helped in terms of just kind of getting an idea for what the Switch 2 is versus the Switch 1. If this video has helped out in any way, please like and subscribe. And thank you for watching.